This year, Queen's Public Library proudly celebrates Lit with Pride, a recognition of the LGBTQIA+ community and the courage to live openly, love boldly, and share the stories that make us who we are. Enjoy our book lists and join us for an inspiring lineup of Pride Month events, including author talks, film screenings, Pride-themed crafts, and inclusive story times for all ages. Visit queenslib.org/Pride 2026 to learn more. Juneteenth commemorates the end of slavery in the United States. Join us in June as we celebrate this annual day of Jubilee all month long. Check out our reading lists and don't miss our in-person and virtual programs in honor of this important day in U.S. history. Learn more at queenslib.org/Juneteenth 2026. The World Cup brings together nations from every corner of the globe, and many of them have immigrant communities right here in Queens. We're celebrating the tournament's return to the United States this summer with soccer-themed story times, great giveaways, opportunities for you to share your World Cup memories, watch parties for live games, and much more. Visit queenslibrary.org to learn more about all of our World Cup football fun. Summer is a time to read and explore. We invite you to discover our programs and activities for children, teens, and adults, enjoy our curated book lists for every reading level, and so much more. Join us this summer at the library and let us know, what's your story? For more information, visit summerreading.queenslibrary.org.
Og det var først da, i det jeg tenkte det ordet, at det liksom gikk opp for meg hva dette handlet om. Jeg var jo bare helt utrolig forelsket i Johanna. Det var jo derfor jeg skrev det ned også, for å bevare det. Det føltes som å kaste seg ut for et stup. Enten ville jeg bli redda, og alt ville bli bra. Eller så ville livet ta slutt.
Du har ikke visst noe, eller?
Ja, ikke før jeg leste dette her.
Du...
Da føler jeg meg bare sånn dum.
Hun må jo ha sett henne naken, da.
Tenkte jeg også, men samtidig så er det jo et grep da. Litterært, mener jeg.
Jeg tar gjerne en samtale med henne.
Tenker du det at dette er noe som du kan tenke deg å gi ut, liksom?
Ja.
Det er for det er noen veldig intime beskrivelser.
Ja. Veldig seksuelle.
Å kunne beskrive kjønn og seksualitet så direkte, uten alle mulige kyske forbehold, det trengs. Dette her er jo en historie om skeiv oppvåkning. Her er boka di.
Skeiv oppvåkning?
Ja, det er det jo.
Men er jeg skeiv bare fordi jeg forelsket meg i Johanna?
Oui, c'est juste.
Det å være forelsket på den måten, og merket hvordan jeg savner det.
Jeg tenker på alle jeg har ligget med her.
Hello, I'm Taylor Purdy, and welcome back to Culture Connection. Culture Connection, if you haven't joined us before, is curated by Daniel Zaleski. And now it's kind of kicking off its 14th year here at the Queen's Public Library. It is a series that presents international artists and emerging talents, award-winning masters in disciplines across music, theater, literature, and now, as you can see, we are in a virtual format and reaching a wider global audience, some of which is joining us today. We have the director and stars of the Oslo trilogy, which if you haven't gotten a chance to see it at the library yet, is a 3-film kind of triptych, all released in about 2024, titled "Sex, Love, and Dreams." So we're gonna dive right in because we have a panel of multiple people from multiple films today. First, I wanted to ask Johan, deciding to do all of these at once, was that kind of like is that how the story came to you, or was that like a big production decision?
No, at first I was thinking of making just one film, a very short film, actually, Sex. It was meant to just last for 1 hour, like a short, not a short film, but a short feature film in a way. But we couldn't get any money to do that because the people who were giving us money, Norwegian Film Institute, they wanted us to embark on a bigger project, really make a regular feature. And then when they asked for something more, we thought, well, we give them much more. So then I thought, instead of just making one regular feature film, which I have done sometimes, I thought it would be more interesting for me to try to write a much bigger project. There were many reasons for that, which I thought it would be good to work with the same crew over a longer period of time, just to see how that would work. We get to know each other better over a longer period of time, and then maybe the filmmaking would be easier because we were better at communicating, maybe. That was one of the theories I had. And then it also gave me the possibility to work with a lot of actors that I wanted to work with. And I thought, if you want to talk about an issue like these films are all about LGBTQ issues in one way or another, but if you want to not cover them, but to delve into different perspectives, you need more time, you need more stories. And so I thought, okay, we try to make 3 films about this. And I'm really happy that we did that, because it was a very good experience, I would say.
What were the productions really back to back, or like was there a brief hiatus between, really, like Lord of the Rings style, just all 3 at once?
All 3 at once. It started with Love, in August. And then we finished with Sex the spring the next year. So, and we had, a couple of weeks in between the different films, 2 months between Dreams and Love. But between Love and 2 months between Dreams and Sex, and just 3 weeks between Love and Dreams.
And then like 8 months of sleeping after that, I imagine.
No, and then we started editing right away. So we edited while we were shooting. And then you get a very long time to edit as well, which is very good, because we also had a year after that we did the editing. So we started editing Love, and then when we were shooting Dreams, we started editing Dreams, and then in Sex we started, and then we took up Love again. So, we had the possibility to work with the edit of Love for almost over a year.
Wow. I mean, you talk about getting to know your crew over that period, but your cast, you'd worked with before. This is a bit of a rep company that you're building here. Can you walk me through how these 2 ended up in this particular project?
Yeah, I have been working with them before. Torbjørn, I have been working with many times before. When I made my first kind of feature or a long short, Torbjørn was in it. And then, so I wanted to revisit that collaboration and try to work again. And Ella, I worked with the first time in the previous film I made before this trilogy. And then it was 10 years ago, I think, maybe more, yeah. And then she was only 10 years old. And then I thought it would be nice to work with her again when she was a bit more grown up. but you know, it was a very good collaboration, I think, when we made the last film. Even if, is it okay that I say that you were a child, because you were? Yeah?
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
There's no lying in that.
But I think she was very good at that age, and I thought it would be very nice to see how she had developed as an actor. Yeah, and there are a lot of other actors too that I've been working with before. So I was trying to, you know, maybe to try to make them do things they haven't been doing with me before, also.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw the trailer for Dreams, which is the film that Ella is in of these three. And one of the things that is so striking to me about that movie is the sort of unreliable narrator element to it. And I'm really curious, Ella, in reading that script and then building that character, just deciding which moments are true, which moments are imagined, and whether or not that matters or not. I'm curious if you can walk me through how you handled the ambiguity of those relationships.
Well, I don't know what ambiguity means, but I think I understood the other words you said, so I'm just gonna answer the parts that I understood, I think. Because you're asking me how I felt, you know, getting the script and the character, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I read the script for the first time, the stories, there's a lot of stories happening, and I feel like in the movie we're sort of following this inner story, the parallel dialogue, which is Johanna's emotional journey and the whole dream and the fantasy and then which is a lot of the voiceover, and then we see things and we don't know exactly what is true and what's just a part of her head and her imagination. And for me, the script, because it's also written like sort of two stories. It's written you read the voiceovers and then you sort of read the dialogues and what happens. And for me, as when developing a role like that, it feels like such a big gift to sort of get this full-on emotional life of this character that you're sort of going to just embody within yourself. And it didn't feel like I was deciding when things were true or when things were made up. Everything felt true all the time, because, you know, I was supposed to be Johanna, and in her world she was sort of living her reality out. So for me that was such a great gift, because I could just sort of embody everything and buy everything that she was thinking and saying. And it's almost just after seeing the film, the result, that I felt like, oh, that's sort of the first time where I actually thought that, oh, she is making things up, you know, she has not everything is true, because I was so deep in the characters. I never really even questioned so much what was true or not, because it just felt very, very true, you know.
That's probably why the performance works. The performance is so compelling, and then the trick of the movie works so well, because I don't know which thing happened, which thing didn't, and then it doesn't really matter. It's so experienced that is what's carrying us along. But I mean, Sex has a kind of similar sense of, you know, the labels that these guys aren't putting on themselves, the sort of the disconnect between what maybe an audience reading a film like, oh, look, this is a queer person, this girl's in love with that teacher, versus what the characters are experiencing themselves. And so I'm curious, from your perspective on Sex, the blurring those lines in your character, was that very intentional? Was that in the script? How did you make that?
No, it was absolutely in the script. I remember with me and Dag Johan, were discussing what is like my character and both of the two main characters, what are they going through and how do they actually feel, and it was hard to often as an actor you have you go through the script and you decide what the character wants and how he feels and the needs of the character and everything, but in this film as an actor I really didn't know what my character wanted or needed on some level, and I tried to discuss this with Dag Johan, our director, and he was like, yeah, let's see, and I think that's more true to the way we feel in life. We don't really know most of the time why we're doing things, so there was a big ambiguity, if that's the word, to this film too.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, as an American watching these, that was one of the most striking, not like, oh, so much of these films is dramatically and emotionally striking, but one of the moments where I remembered, oh, this is a film from another culture. Because it was hard for me to imagine an American film handling these topics with this level of, who knows? And it doesn't matter. Like in Dreams, the idea that where their power lines cross, is the age gap a problem? The fact that this film says, I don't know, man, she was writing in her journal, felt very freeing. But I wonder, Dag Johan, when you were taking that point of view, was that a very intentional, like, oh, this is going to be a little shocking, or is that my American Puritanism reading?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it as shocking at all. I just wanted to, tell about these people and not make a very big issue of it, in a way, not a very big deal. And I think that is, I wanted to make a more complex film because, for instance, Dreams, it's very much also about, writing and reading and, what happens when you read something that maybe changes your point of view or your morality, even, your sense of morality. So that's an issue that interested me more, in a way. And I thought that the queer theme, it's there, and you don't have to talk so much about that. And I also think that when you are a teenager, when you are in love, the only thing you are thinking about are the person you are in love with. So then you don't really, not yet anyway, you don't really think about who you are. Like it's not an identity issue, it's a being in love issue, and that's something else, really. It's driven from the emotions and the attraction, not the need to come out as anything. So yeah,
that's something that really made these films feel like something that was new for me, because that is so the lived experience of a thing like that, but is so rarely the experience of watching the story be told. I mean, in Sex too, the like, what's the infidelity? How much does it matter? All of that. And it was also kind of a sad reminder of, I feel like 20 years ago, I wouldn't have necessarily been so surprised to see a film that was okay with its ambiguity. And it just made me feel like, man, we're missing out on that. That's something I want in my films more and more, because it was those moments that were so relatable. The moments of not knowing what was going on, those like real human little bits.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
Go ahead. No, just talking about identity in Sex, the film that I'm in. It's a kind of question Dag Johan, in his fantastic script, puts up this question of some kind of identity, because I play a man living in a heterosexual relationship who suddenly starts dreaming about that people look at me as a woman. and that was a question me, Torbjörn, not the actor, but me as a person, had never kind of. What does that do to? What would have done to me if people started looking at me as a woman? How would that change me? How would my identity change if that happened? And that was a very interesting, like emotional, intellectual kind of journey for me. Not just working as an actor, but as a person. So, and I guess that's another kind of identity discussion, I think, is in this movie that I really like.
And in taking away the sort of like macro social part of that conversation and making it just about this character's, this one person's experience of the thing, that's, I think what really draws in the audience, that sort of like hyper the specificity of it, you know? I'm curious how you guys built the relationships with your on-screen pseudo love interests, fantasy subjects. I guess let's start with Dreams, because I'm curious about. Well, actually, first let me ask for Dag Johan. Casting of the professor, of the teacher. Small question. The nameplay, the similarity of their names, is that a thing that is intentional, or is that just that I can't hear the differences in the language?
Well, it is intentional, because I think that she would, you know, when you are very much in love, you're seeing everything like signs, you know.
Sure.
So, you know, when she was called almost the same as, you know, when the teacher had almost the same name, it's almost like you meant to be in a way, you know. Yeah, well, almost. But one person asked me if, because I also have that name.
Yes.
But yeah, but so that I didn't really think about that.
Oh my God.
I mean, I thought about it when the credits roll. I thought about it. The casting of that role, I guess it's such a diverse cast, not just the love interest, but like her friends at school. I was, again, kind of found myself struck by that Oslo that she's going to school in felt like a more pluralist world than like the New York I'm seeing portrayed in films. Which, exactly, that face, it's not true, but the fact that you were able to create that world that you made a point to or didn't is interesting. So I'm curious, was that character always written as a woman of color? Or was that just in the casting?
It's in the casting, because I think it's important to say that every part of these three films were written for these particular actors. So I didn't write them and then casted them. You know, I wrote it for them. So and Selome, who plays the teacher, Selome Emnetu, she was always meant to be part of, you know, the whole crew of the acting crew. So it was, yeah, it was more that, I think, that I didn't really think so much about diversity or that the teacher should be a woman of color, really. But, you know, that, and maybe I thought a bit too little through that, I think.
I don't know. I mean, to some degree, I mean, isn't the end goal of representation like that the not needing to think it through to some degree? And I mean, like we've been saying a couple times now, because that is kind of just the fact of this relationship, it feels more universal. It feels more right. The scene where she ties the scarf around your neck. I was watching the film with somebody, and we both were like, "Oh my God, it's just like in the book. It's in the book from the beginning." So that romance was really effective, in spite of all of the things that we could have been reading into it. We could have been saying, "Oh, well, what does it mean that woman looks like that, or what's the age gap? I don't know." Because your character was just going with it, we were also just going with it. And in Sex too, I'm curious in crafting the the real relationship, the literal relationship versus the fantasy relationship. How are you living those sorts of inside outside fantasy sex things?
Ask the question again, please.
Okay, so in sex, the kind of hard delineation between your real life and your dream life.
Yeah.
How did you go about creating that delineation for your character or in the performance?
For me, just technically acting wise, I kind of put it in my body. That my character has started to feel this sensation in his body of being something else, that his body was being something more than he was used to. Because I think in our culture, and I guess in your culture too, the masculine way is to be the subject, and the kind of feminine way is in a way to be an object. We can disagree or agree, but to be a person who's feeling watched is a kind of feminine thing. Watch someone is a masculine thing. And for my character to suddenly feel that people are looking at him as a woman made my character I built it up. Okay, suddenly I'm a bit more of an object. This body is being watched.
Yeah.
That felt, because the real masculine way of being a man is to be the one who watches. So for me as an actor, my character's realization and was a bit, so I put it in my body in a way.
Yeah, that's a great.
I don't know if that's an answer.
Good answer to that. That kind of, tracks with that performance. I love having that concept, because looking back at your performance with that in it, again, that thread really makes sense. Can we roll the trailer for Sex? And
først så visste jeg ikke at det var det. Først så trodde jeg det var Gud. Jeg pleier ikke å huske det jeg drømmer, men dette her husker jeg veldig detaljert. Sitter liksom i kroppen.
Men du opptatt av David Bowie?
Nei, det er jo ikke det hele tatt.
Hvem var det han så på deg sånn?
Jeg tror han så på meg som om jeg var en dame.
Men synes du han høres annerledes ut, eller?
Kanskje litt lysere. Og så var det et eller annet med stemmen min.
Ja, du er litt hes, eller? Så gå ut på gata da. Nei, så tenker jeg litt på det, og så går jeg inn igjen.
Og så hadde du sex med han?
Ja.
Hvordan var det? Var det ikke rart?
Nei, det var deilig, altså. Litt sånn overveldende godt, det må jeg si det. Jeg merket jo det, jeg var jo egentlig veldig opphisset.
Han nylig hatt sex med en mann. Han er ikke homo, skjønner du? Nei, han er ikke det.
Nei, det er rart med det, men det var liksom litt sånn sensasjonelt på en måte for meg, da.
Holder du underbuksa på?
Jeg har ikke noen andre å prate med om dette her enn deg, så. Og kona mi, selvfølgelig, da.
Ja, du har ikke sagt det til henne?
Jo, jeg fortalte det med en gang jeg kom hjem, ja.
Vi er jo aldri så nær hverandre som når vi har sex. Ja, er du ikke enig? Hvorfor sier du ikke noe?
Are you the kind of actor who watches the film. I'm sure you saw it at the festivals, but have you seen it since?
It's quite a while since I've seen it now. It was nice to see this trailer again.
Well, that's why I'm asking. That last moment of you in the dance studio seems so much like what we were just talking about.
Yeah, for me, the character that's the kind of peak of the character where he actually comes out and for his first time in his life actually manages to be a little part of that dream he has somehow. Yeah.
So the kind of like dual leads of that. I mean, the two storylines. Was that always the plan on like when you sat down to write that particular script? Was it always kind of split like that?
Yeah, it was. It was because it's also, a film about this friendship, the male friendship. And I had been making another film with the two women sitting talking like that, talking about their things that have happened in their life. And then I tried to see if men could talk like that as well. If they could share things, intimate things with each other as friends, because maybe you don't see those kind of conversations with two male characters that often. And I think also it was quite a challenge because even if I have kind of those conversations with my male friends, it's they are supposed to be very open to each other and they're supposed to be not judgmental at all. And I think that is what makes it like a kind of a special friendship, I think, also. But I think, it was interesting to try to write that.
So,
but just to comment on that, the interesting thing about and the fascinating thing about working with Dag Johan as a director is that he writes scenes that any other director would direct as kind of a discussion or a fight, and then you have conflict, and you would end up playing those scenes as conflict scenes. But Dag Johan kind of writes them as conflicts in a way, but you don't want us to play them as conflict. You want us to play the conflict only in the words and kind of being warm and open and friendly, but still discussing hard issues. And that makes, when I see these films, I kind of I wish we could have lived like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic thing about these movies.
That reminds me that at least here in the States, there's a lot of comparison between these films and the Eric Rohmer movies. And I think a lot of it is kind of what you were just describing. I mean, was he like an influence on these or your work at large, or is that a coincidence?
No. It has been a big influence on me because I started watching his film at a very early age. So I really like the way he treats like everyday issues in this way, not like very big conflicts. And there's even less drama in his films, I think, because they are, they can be about, choosing a lamp in a shop or something, that can be a scene which it's very, very everyday life scene that has no conflict at all, but he still manages to raise some existential questions in those scenes, which I think is really, impressive. So they have made a very big impact on me, his films. And also because they're so different that you have to, think in another way when you watch them, in a way. They are really challenging in their simpleness.
I found myself when watching these just really glad to be looking at people's faces. The amount of time that we spend just like on one of them, or like with them on a couch, the kind of freedom in the like constructed familiarity of that we were, the fly on the wall thing, but that it works across these while also never getting in the way of the very real drama. Was just I hadn't gotten to enjoy that kind of film in a minute. I haven't had that kind of movie in my life in like 3 months, so this was intense. But to that point, I'm curious, where do films like this live in Norway, like at home for you guys? What was the life cycle of this trilogy?
Oh, it's festival release and then cinema release and then streaming. So like a regular feature.
Well,
yeah.
I guess the cinema release is maybe mostly what I'm asking about. So is this? I guess more than anything, I'm asking about the sort of like cultural reaction to it. Are these kind of put off to the side in like the queer art space, or is there enough of a circuit that will go to this movie either in spite of or because of its subject matter?
Not because of its subject matter, I think, but they don't have a big audience in Norway or in Scandinavia. They don't, but they don't, they have like a regular audience for these kind of films, these art house films, and I don't think they are seen as very, like the themes that are, I don't know, maybe you two should answer that, but I don't have the impression that they are treated like very, that they are shocking in any way, or they are feeling different from the audience. I don't think so. I think they're quite like regular Norwegian art house movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. What would you say?
No, I agree. I don't think it's a shocking movie for a lot of Norwegian audience, but it's more about, we talk about Taylor with the taking time. I think that it's a cinema. It's like a movie that allows itself the time with the dialogue in the breaks, and I think it's harder for especially young people nowadays to get to the cinema and watch movies that doesn't necessarily have those major conflicts, or that allows itself to sort of also, you need to have the attention span to be in the room as well. So I think that's also just some of the things that has to do with it. I don't think it's because of I don't know what the movies are about. They're not categorized as very queer movies, I would say, either.
Not at all.
No, I don't.
No.
I absolutely don't feel that these movies are categorized as anything like that in Norway.
No.
But as art house films, it kind of is. Yeah.
So, I guess from that perspective, the streaming thing, is there like an art house streaming circuit, or are these going to play on whatever your state broadcast television is?
Yeah, they are both. There are a little problem. It's a little problem with these films right now because of the production, because they were produced by money from the Film Institute and also from Viaplay, the streaming service, and they haven't released them yet. So that's an issue that are very much discussed in Norway. We are trying to get them to release them, but because of some kind of tax issues or some money issues, they are waiting to release them.
You mean release them on television?
Like for streaming, for on demand, yeah. So and they have to do that before they are released on television and on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever.
So it played cinemas in Norway, but it hasn't been at home.
Sex is the only one, but Dreams and Love is still waiting to get kind of a streaming release. So you can see them. You can see them in any other language countries except Norway.
But it did do theatrical in Norway. You did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and they are still running in the cinemas this month. They are running in different cinemas because of the Pride Month.
Huh. Well, I mean, the obviously this series is a lot about how we make the art, how the art makes us feel, but the accessibility of the art is such a key component of that.
Yeah.
Especially for films like this that you were saying that. I mean, I wouldn't have been entirely surprised if you had said, "Oh, these aren't exactly even art films. These are just we treat them like we would any other film." And so, what your system at home is built to handle is really interesting to me. Before we take questions, I want to show the trailer for Love, but we're going to turn the sound off on it because while we do it, I was just hoping, Dag Johan, you could kind of just take me back to the first seed of this, this concept after you knew it wasn't going to be a short anymore. At least how you came up with the order you wanted to do them in. And yeah.
So I will just start. So we wanted to call it Sex, Dreams and Love, which I think is sounds best, and then Love was meant to be the third film, really. So it's released as the first film in many other countries. But anyway, this is kind of what you're seeing now is Oslo by Day, and this is the two main characters, Andrea and as she's called, Marianne and Tor, and she is a doctor and he's a nurse. And this film really deals with gay sexuality in a way, that because this nurse, Tor, he has experiences from cruising, and he tells his colleague Marianne about that, and she is really intrigued because she might think that could be something for her as well. So it's really a film about sexuality, how you can, live a different life with a kind of challenge your own sexuality in a way. And so this is Tor, is the nurse. It's a bit of a lag here. I don't.
You don't have to.
I can't follow it very well. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the film, the one of the three that is most directly about sexuality, and which really deals with this queer sexuality in a more direct way than the other two films, I would say. And it's also about, the, HIV and AIDS, and how that made a very, very big impact on men in a certain age for many, many times, and which really, affected their lives and their lifestyles. So it's very much about that as well. And it's also about prostate cancer and the sexual benefits of the prostate.
Is the character with that plotline, is his name Manzel? Is that?
Excuse me?
What's the name of the character with the prostate plotline?
Oh, that's a good question, because I almost forgot that. He's called, it's Tor and, do you remember?
He's in
Totally
Dreams
forgot.
as well.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I thought I wrote it down as
I shouldn't forget my character's name.
My question isn't about his name. My question is more about the having kind of having the HIV/AIDS plotline and the prostate health plotline. That almost feels like a lot of like health-related, hospital-y things in one movie. How did you blend it together?
No, I think it was important for me in that film to talk more directly about different issues like health issues and how you, as a patient, meet the medical system, the communication with doctors, patients and doctors. So that was something I really wanted to address. So there are a lot of different things that are more like maybe I shouldn't use the word message, but there are some kind of messages in that film, because I think that it's some things that it is necessary to talk more directly about. And I think I'm trying to deal with that in this film. You know, how prostate cancer affects your life, but both when it comes to, you know, the bodily functions after an operation, and how it comes to how it affects your sexuality. So I thought that would be interesting to just say it, you know, talk about it very directly. And because the gay sexuality is a bit different than the heterosexual sexuality, the praxis might be, then doctors and the medical personals don't always seem to address that in the right way. They don't have the real, you know, knowledge. So yeah, and I think that I have got a lot of response from men who have had these operations after this film. So I think I struck a chord there in some way.
We're gonna have questions in a second, but I just wanted to pull up a couple of stills that I think we have. Yeah.
Björn. He's called Björn.
Yeah, he's Björn.
Okay.
Björn.
That's a good classic Scandinavian name. Okay, great. So I think we're grabbing some stills. But I'm glad that we. So this is dreams. Okay, so in this scene, there's when Ella kind of describes this, she uses a phrase, the secret skin, that then later comes into play when her grandmother is pitching her book to her publisher. And that scene, there are a lot of scenes on staircases in that movie, but that scene is really striking to me because the grandmother really wants to support her granddaughter, but then as soon as the publisher is interested, maybe is a little bit competitive, and she kind of says, "Oh, well, she learned this secret skin phrase from me." Intergenerational competition, I'm a little curious about, both crafting it and from an actor's perspective, and why you wanted to include it.
So you ask me first or Ella?
I guess I'll ask Ella first. The building the relationship with the two generations of women around you, the mother and the grandmother.
How it was to build the relationship. You know, one of my favorite parts of the movie is the fact that the grandmother, you know, we see her jealous side. We see, because it's such a human emotion, and you know, the part of loving people so much and wishing them the best, but you have your own dreams as well, and they have to shine through. So I love that you take this up, and working with the generations, we didn't really have a lot of conversations in prep about how are these generations different from each other, how is this different representations of how is the sexuality, how have we grown up differently. I sort of just embraced the fact that they were playing my mother and my grandmother, and everything felt so natural, and it's interesting to sort of I guess that's another thing that I've sort of just thought more about later after watching the result, how the generations are different. And I think that also has something to do with the fact that I was so in my head during the whole filming and shooting with the characters. I didn't even think about anyone else than Johanna and how they were different. I just expected them to be exactly how they were, I guess.
But to me, this is also about, you know, what is empathy, because the grandmother, she is very empathic when she reads about, you know, when she reads about her granddaughter who is heartbroken and she's going through a hard time. So she is very good at that, but she's not very empathic about the happier side, you know, when it goes well. But that's a really important part of showing empathy as well, to be happy for other people's when they are having success. And she's not so good at that really, because then she gets envious and she is mainly thinking about herself, you know, her own writing. So I think that that's something I really wanted to show, that how hard it is to show empathy when it goes well with other people.
Wow.
Mm.
That's really great, because that scene really stuck with me, and now I am glad I asked about it, because I feel like I want to send that scene to so many people with your comments on it, you know? So one of our questions from the audience is essentially, I guess, because we kind of covered this for Dag Johan with Romer, but either films or plays, other dramatic works that inspire you, that you were pulling from for these films that come to mind?
Certain Romer films? Sorry?
For the other two.
Okay.
Were there any either performances or films or texts that you like that live in your brain that you were pulling from for these films in particular to make these films?
I've been very inspired by different actors and different directors and movies, but I don't think for this film particularly that there was something that I tried to copy or be inspired by. No, actually not. But I have many idols and inspirations. Yeah. What about you, Ella?
No, but it's yeah, I don't know. I don't have any specific, but yeah, I have a lot of movies that I learn from and love, but not that I use as direct.
What's one that you didn't use?
Intouchable. It's the French, The Untouchables. It's a French movie. From it's my favorite movie. It's about
when is
this.
Which version?
20-something.
Okay.
I can check it out. It's a beautiful movie about a man taking care of an older man, and then it's a male relationship, friendship. Dag Johan, it's your favorite category of friendship.
Okay.
It's a great one.
So this shot, do you want to walk us through this scene or that day of filming?
For me?
Yeah.
This is a scene with my wife in the movie, Birgitte Larsen, fantastic actress. It's the fantastic thing about working with Dag Johan, as you started with, talking about this kind of repertoire film group that since I've been working with Dag Johan before as a director, and you work with other actors that you kind of worked with before, there's a trust there. So you don't need to go through kind of that little getting to know each other and be uncertain if you can do that or this, can I push this hard, or, you know, because we kind of know each other, the actors. So it's a strong level of trust even before we start working. And with these actors, it's the same. And for me, this particular day was very... sometimes in movies, as an actor, you have to prepare to be tough or hard, or prepare to you know, cry or go into deep emotions. But with these films, you have to kind of prepare yourself to be open and be kind of, the people can see through you. And if there's anything I'm proud of in this movie, is that I think maybe like this picture for me is the way kind of I feel I look the way I try to work in this picture, if you understand what I mean. It's kind of Um, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a kind of the characters always kind of having like 10% of the characters saying, "What's going on? What's going on with me? There's something strange going on with me now." So that's, yeah, I don't know, but that's I think this picture represents a lot of what the movie is for me.
Well, let's go to the last still. So yeah, Dag Johan, maybe.
Yeah. So this is, one of the ending scenes of Love, and this is the man Björn who is lying down. He is the one who has this prostate cancer, and Tor is the nurse who has been with him for one night, just laying by his side, holding him. And this is, also very much about trust, really, this scene. If, the older man who's lying down really has it in him to trust the nurse in a way, because he has quite a bad experience in trusting other people. And he hasn't had many relations in his life because of fear of HIV, really. So this is kind of a very intimate moment.
You mentioned earlier that HIV had been, an important factor for men of a certain generation.
Yeah.
Which, yes, of course. And I guess I want to ask, I find myself, as time goes on and the AIDS crisis goes further and further into the past, kind of surprised at how not ready society was to move on, but how the stories of it and the myth of it doesn't get cycled down to the next generation. And I find myself in conversations with people even a bit older than me who have such a disconnect from the. And I'm curious, with the three of you who are all different ages and different experiences, how much does that live in your social psyche?
Yeah. I can just answer, to me, a lot. It has really affected my life and my generation a lot. And I talk, with people who are men of my age. We are talking a lot about that. And also about how the stories about AIDS are very often about the victims, really, and the families of the victims. And not so much about the people who survived, who really is carrying a trauma because of the fear. So that's something that is also, worth talking about, I think.
I'm curious for Ella, and I mean, maybe this is too personal or too not the film you were in, but as the youngest person on the Zoom, do you feel in your contemporaries that the AIDS crisis has a place in the social consciousness?
No, very
fascinating.
I mean, I've grown up with almost no talk of it or conversations of it. It hasn't surrounded or affected me and my friends, and and all of my queer friends. We it doesn't affect us. My first my first meeting with the crisis was watching this play in Oslo. That was it last year, Arvin?
Yeah, The Heritage.
Yeah. Which is from is it originally American play?
Yeah.
What's the
Is it?
It's called Ireland in Norwegian, The Heritage.
The Heritage.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Could we call that?
Yeah.
It's like an 8-hour play. Yeah, long play. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and all of my friends watched it, and it just it sort of this 8 hours follows all these different people, and we all was very we were so mind blown, and we talked about it for weeks and watched it multiple times because it was sort of our first meeting with the crisis, because we don't really we don't get affected by it almost.
Well, I guess that's why I asked, because I mean, to some degree, that I guess, is the goal, that it is eradicated enough that a generation doesn't have to live in fear of it. But at the same time, all of the like fears that society gives its young people around sex and queerness, but also just sex generally, like, you know, the amount of times I've had a conversation with somebody and the premise was like, should I have gone to that bar? Hope she's not pregnant. Not something that would have been different 30 years ago. Where it feels less like we outgrew it because we could, and more like we just stopped talking about it because we wanted to. And that where, you know, something like Love is really striking, that like as you were saying, the survivor's energy. And as the survivors continue to survive, your point of view on this is going to shift. So the stories of the crisis will continue as your view on it evolves, as you grow up more. And then at the same time, that's why the kind of laissez-faire element of the queer stories in the rest of these is so important, because both of those things can be true. You can be recovering from the trauma and also just like maybe into your hot teacher who's also a girl. So it's we've been on for about an hour. Is there anything that you didn't get to get into that you guys want to shout out? Or there's there's a question about if you guys, if you three have any concept of if you're working together again or what you're going off to do next, if you're going to do 6 movies at a time this next round.
Well, I want to really, I'm going to work with these two again if they want to. So that's my plan. And I'm writing some new scripts now, so we'll see.
One at a time scripts or like another super cut?
I don't think I'm allowed to say.
Nope. The fact that it's a question, I think. What about you guys? You do theater as well, the two of you?
Yeah, I do a lot of theater in Norway. Okay. That's kind of my base. And Ella, you too?
Yeah, I'm studying theater now.
Yeah.
So I want to do theater, but I have a couple of more years left in my bachelor.
Okay.
Do you want one story before we end? Ella, do you want to tell the story about the first time we filmed together?
No, I don't want to. It's giving me scares.
I hear it, though.
You can do it. It's still stressing me out.
And this was on a different film with Dag Johan, where Ella, you were like a child actor at that point.
Yes.
Okay.
I was 11 years old and traumatized.
Well,
I was not. It's good now, but it's taking years to rebuild the relationship. You can tell it to Björn.
Yeah, you have to tell it now.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
we were playing, Ella and me, in a movie that Dag Johan made. It was called Beware of Children. You also can see if you're interested. Ella plays an 11-year-old girl and who has accidentally, this is not a spoiler, but for you, killed my son. And so the first time the film, I'm going to talk to her. She sits in the back of a car. I see her sit there. I walk up, my character, open the door, and really, really talks to her in a bad way. And we're going to shoot this scene. And after lunch, and I didn't have a scene before lunch, so I came just before lunch and made myself ready. And I had never met Ella. And Dag Johan said, "Oh, you want to meet the actor who's going to play this little girl?" And I said, "Maybe it's good, because she's going to that you put the camera on her and we don't meet, and I take up the door and I just talk to her the way I was supposed to talk." And
you almost scream at her.
Almost screened it. And I thought, and Agaham said, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. And so I didn't meet Ella. And I came, and the camera was on her, and I opened the door, and I was ready to scream at this girl who had killed my son. But then I opened the door, and I realized, oh, this is not a colleague actress of mine. This is an 11-year-old girl sitting there. But then it was too late to stop. So so I just poured out everything I had in my heart, and I saw the face of an 11-year-old girl just completely change. So I'm sorry for that, Ella. I hope we're okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was method. That was method acting for
Method
you.
acting. Yeah, absolutely.
Culture Connection is here to heal all of the actor-on-actor wounds that you can throw at them, man. Oh, that's so scary. I'm glad that you can be on the Zoom together, even though you haven't been on the same goddamn film since. You have the same trilogy. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for zooming in and playing with the time zones for us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. It was nice.
So the Oslo trilogy you can stream it here in America. We don't have whatever drama you guys have. It's out from Strand Releasing. It's, all of the places where you rent movies. All right. Well, thanks, guys. This was really kind of a great Pride Month kickoff, I think, for the library.
Thank you.
Well,
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.